companies have either no data or too much data of the wrong kind of data. What about all these companies that start off saying, I've got a bunch of web logs, but I haven't got much else? Where's the starting point? How do they know enough data is enough to get started?
That reminds me of the question I get. I haven't got as much anymore, but I used to do, a keynote, and somebody would come to me and say, "Well, is my data big enough?" And I was like, "What does that sentence even mean?" So the problem that organizations have overall isn't the volume of data they do or don't have. The problem is they aren't clear on what problems they're trying to solve. I mean, let's be very clear. How do you distinguish signal from noise in a data set? Right? You have to know intimately the problem you're trying to solve. And that's probably the one step that almost every organization sort of glosses over. They'll write down a sentence or two. We're trying to improve customer retention by, that's our goal. Okay, well, what are the KPIs and metrics against which you're going to measure progress and success? Who are the stakeholders who need to be involved in that process? What are the entities around which you want to build analytics? What are the decisions you're trying to drive? What are the costs of the false positive and false negatives? What are the business benefits? There's a zillion set of questions that need to be addressed before you ever put science to the data. And by the way, you don't need to be Google to go through that process to figure out what problem we're trying to solve. You just need to spend the time with the right people in a thoughtful process to really make sure you really are clear about what problem we're trying to solve, who's it for, and why it's important.
And even before you turn AI or algorithms loose on the data, having the right problem statement makes sure you collect the right data. We talk oftentimes about love the problem, not the solution,
Yep.
meaning get the problem statement right.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that has to happen up front, and of course, as you know from my book, I'm a big believer in design thinking, because I think design thinking is a way to drive that upfront definition process, so that everybody who has a voice in the problem has a chance for their voice to be heard. And we know that AI models try to optimize across an AI utility function. And the more robust that utility function is, that is the more dimensions you're trying to optimize that, the more effective it's going to be, where effective is realized and relevant and meaningful and quantifiable, right? So design thinking for me is a way that you bring that process in to make sure you really thoroughly understand the problem you're going after. Especially the one area that people tend to skip over is, what are the costs of the false positive and false negatives? What's the cost of being wrong?